never touch that little girl. I loved her more than I loved myself.
Breaking news, a man publicly accused of homicide and the death of a 3-year-old Exeter girl speaks exclusively to CBS 47 News. Chris Cheery and the girl's mother are persons of interest in this case. He sat down tonight with CBS 47's Catherine Herr. She joins us live in Tulare County with the exclusive details. Catherine.
Well, Ken, we met Chris Cheery at a park in Tulare County. He fears for his safety and doesn't want anyone to know where he's staying. He wanted to tell his side of the story, what happened the day Sophia Acosta was found critically injured.
We were just downstairs smoking heroin, we had smoked some pot, and that's about it. Like, that's all we were really doing. Like, and the girls were upstairs in the bedroom sleeping. I had found her on the ground next to the bed.
Lie on that TV all he wants to, but he's looking around his back, making sure nobody's after him. He's a liar from the pits of hell.
They said she had simply gone to sleep after lunch. A quiet nap, nothing unusual. But within hours, doctors were faced with injuries no slip, no stumble, no ordinary accident could ever explain. The story given to first responders was meant to reassure that a 3-year-old girl had choked or perhaps rolled from her bed. Yet the medical findings shattered those claims. What was supposed to be a household mishap unraveled into a series of contradictions, thus each one more troubling than the last. How does a trusted figure in a child's life, someone welcomed into her home, become the source of danger? How could accounts of an innocent fall dissolve under the weight of evidence? And how did the safety net of those around her, family, friends, and even the system meant to protect her, fail so completely? This was not a case of chance or misfortune. It was the collision of trust misplaced, warnings unheeded, and oversight that came far too late. Behind the walls of an ordinary apartment in Exeter, California, a young life full of joy and light was extinguished in circumstances that stunned even seasoned investigators. At the center was a little girl remembered for her laughter, her playfulness, and the way she carried happiness into every room. But behind that bright smile, unseen by many, were mounting dangers that would only come to light once it was too late. This is the case of Sophia Acosta and what happened inside apartment number 9 in Exeter, California. Before we begin, this case involves the loss of a child. We'll avoid graphic details, but some parts may still be upsetting. If you're new here, let us know where you're watching from. And to our loyal community, thank you. Your shares, comments, and subscriptions keep these stories alive and help spread awareness so that tragedies like this are never forgotten. Sophia Acosta was born on February 5, 2008. Family and friends remembered a spirited toddler who loved princesses, coloring, and dressing up. She was 3 by early 2011, bright, playful, and quick to make people smile. Her parents, Erica Smith and Obadiah Obi Acosta, separated after a difficult relationship. Day-to-day care fell to Erica, who had primary custody. Sophia's younger sister, Alexa, completed the small household, and the family settled into an apartment in Exeter, California. In 2010, Erica met Christopher Cheery. According to those close to the family, Erica believed he was trying to turn his life around. Later that year, she invited him to move into the Exeter apartment, saying she wanted to help him stay clean. The decision placed Cheery in the role of an adult presence inside the home, around both girls, in their daily routines, and within their most private space. Cheery's background mattered. He was from Turlock and had struggled with heroin since his teens. Even his own mother had acknowledged that drugs had derailed him. The instability that trailed him, housing, work, and relationships, was not a secret to people who knew him. What began as Erica's attempt to offer support quickly blurred the lines between partner, caregiver, and authority figure inside the apartment. Over the months that followed, Erica and Cheery's relationship deepened. Instead of the distance from drugs that Erica hoped for, their lives intertwined with his habit. Sources later noted that both Erica and Cheery were using. That reality changed the rhythms of the home, who was present, who watched the children, and how decisions were made. It also shifted the balance of trust. Cheery, now a daily fixture, was responsible for bedtime, meals, and the ordinary moments that define a child's sense of safety. Sophia's world was shaped not by strangers, but by the people inside her own home. An adult with a long struggle against addiction now had daily access and influence over her life. The danger did not come from a dark alley or an empty street. It was inside an ordinary apartment where normal routines concealed deeper risks. Erica would later claim she noticed nothing unusual. Yet those who spent time around the children began to see signs she chose to overlook. In the months leading up to early May 2011, warning signs surfaced around the apartment in Exeter. Babysitter Carly Vega noticed marks she could not reconcile and couldn't be explained with ordinary play. On more than one visit, the child appeared withdrawn and uncomfortable. Vega raised her concerns directly with Erica Smith, urging her to get the little one examined and to keep a closer watch on the household routines. Erica dismissed the concerns, attributing everything to clumsiness and everyday tumbles. A second caregiver came forward after Alexa, the younger sibling, suffered a leg injury weeks earlier. When the sitter questioned how it could have happened, Christopher Cheery and Erica pushed back, suggesting the babysitters themselves were the problem. The deflection set a pattern. When questions arose, explanations shifted. None of those explanations resolved the underlying issue, why visible injuries and noticeable discomfort kept appearing. Neighbors on the property also began to remark on the atmosphere inside the unit. There were arguments, restless nights, and a stream of activity that didn't fit a stable home with small children. Several neighbors believed substance use was part of what they were seeing. To them, the household ran hot and cold. Long stretches of quiet, then sudden commotion behind a closed door. A friend, Karen Baby, later testified that Erica confided troubling behavior from Cheery. According to Baby, Erica described episodes of intimidation and said Cheery wanted the children to treat him as a father figure because they weren't calling him daddy or dad. The picture that emerged was not a single incident, but a climate. Pressure from an adult in the home, shifting stories when questions were asked, and a caretaker under strain. The day before the incident, and again on the morning of May 7, 2011, the pattern intensified. Erica left the apartment and took 2 buses to Visalia to purchase heroin. She left Sophia and Alexa in Cheery's care. By Erica's own account, she believed a dose would settle him and cool tensions in the apartment. That choice placed both children under the sole supervision of a young man long entangled with drugs, inside a home where concerns had already gone unaddressed. Despite babysitter reports and neighbor observations, there was no timely intervention by child protection authorities. Calls and conversations did not translate into action. The signal was there, the response was not. By the time Erica returned that afternoon, events were already spiraling toward tragedy. When Erica Smith stepped back into the Exeter apartment that afternoon, she walked into a scene she had not expected. Christopher Cheery told her that something was wrong upstairs. A moment earlier, he said he had given the girls lunch and laid them both down for a nap. Now he claimed he had heard a sudden thump while he was downstairs. According to Cheery, he went up to check and found Sophia on the floor. His explanation shifted as the minutes passed. First that she had choked, then that she may have rolled from her bed, later still that she might have struck a toy cart near the mattress. Erica, when later questioned, added another version, that Sophia had fallen on the stairs days earlier. What began as a confusing exchange between 2 adults quickly escalated into a medical emergency. Paramedics from Exeter EMS arrived to find Sophia unresponsive but still holding the faintest pulse. She was rushed first to Kauai Delta Medical Center in Visalia, then transferred to Valley Children's Hospital in Madeira, where pediatric specialists could provide advanced care. Doctors quickly determined the injuries were not consistent with the explanations they had been given. This was not a household accident, not a choking incident, not a simple fall. It was something far more serious. Over the next 4 days, the hospital team worked to sustain Sophia's fragile condition, while her father, Sophia Acosta, remained at her side. On May 11, 2011, those efforts ended. Sophia was declared brain dead, and her short, bright life came to a close. If stories like this feel important to you, subscribe now, because what investigators uncovered next revealed truths no one was prepared for. Jury selection began in August 2016, more than 5 years after the emergency call. By the time opening statements were delivered, the courtroom had a clear central question. Were the explanations of an accident credible, or did the evidence point to deliberate harm? Prosecutor David Alavezos laid out the state's case. He told jurors they would hear consistent medical testimony showing that Christopher Cheery harmed, sexually assaulted, and killed Sophia Acosta. He previewed expert evidence from the autopsy and neuropathology, and he emphasized the pattern of shifting stories that began the day the child was rushed from the apartment. The state's medical witnesses were methodical. Dr. Burr Hartman walked the jury through the autopsy findings step by step, explaining the mechanism and timing of injuries and why they did not align with a minor household mishap or choking. Dr. Hans Vogel of Stanford then explained the neuropathology review, confirming that the brain findings were inconsistent with an accidental event. Together, they presented a clinical, consistent account. The injuries reflected inflicted trauma. The defense responded with what it called a medical mystery. Their experts suggested alternative explanations, an undiagnosed clotting problem, complications from constipation, even the possibility that paramedic procedures might have contributed to collapse. On cross-examination, the prosecution pressed each alternative against the record: the imaging, the autopsy, the timing of symptoms, and the scene evidence. Jurors repeatedly heard that none of the proposed theories matched the totality of the medical data. The people closest to the home also took the stand. Erica Smith testified she had trusted Cheery with the children and admitted she purchased heroin that day. Under questioning, she faced her own contradictions: accounts she had given about a prior fall, explanations that shifted as new facts emerged. Babysitters and neighbors followed, describing earlier concerns and unanswered questions. Karen Beebe, a friend, testified about troubling behavior. She said Erica disclosed pressure in the home and Cheery's efforts to assert authority over the children. Investigators and first responders outlined the apartment scene, the timeline, and the chain of statements made that afternoon. The jury heard that the physical evidence did not support claims of a routine fall or a short-lived airway issue. They also listened to a recorded jail call between Cheery and his father, Charles Cheery, in which Charles warned, "Don't smile in court," followed by an expletive, reminding him that Sophia's family was present. Christopher's reply was blunt and dismissive. "F them." The exchange was played for jurors to highlight his lack of remorse and disregard for the victim's family, undermining the defense's claim that he cared deeply for the child. By the end of the evidentiary phase, the case presented a stark contrast. On one side, consistent medical findings and first-hand observations. On the other, shifting explanations that were not substantiated by the record. The prosecution argued that the only narrative supported by science and chronology was the one pointing to deliberate harm. The defense asked jurors to hold on to reasonable doubt. On November 14, 2016, the jury found Christopher Cheery guilty of first-degree murder with special circumstances. 2 weeks later, on November 30, 2016, after hearing additional evidence in the penalty phase, the jury recommended the death penalty. On January 30, 2017, in Tulare County Superior Court, Judge Joseph Kalashian imposed the death sentence on Christopher Cheery, following the jury's penalty recommendation. The court's decision closed the trial phase and moved the case into the post-judgment period. Cheery was transferred to California's condemned housing at San Quentin State Prison, where he remains. 2 years later, in 2019, California's governor announced a moratorium on executions. For families who had waited years for finality, the order reshaped expectations. It did not vacate sentences or alter the verdicts. It put executions on hold statewide. For Sophia's relatives, the legal outcome stood, but the path to closure became more complicated. Custody decisions for Sophia's younger sister were handled in a separate process. In late 2011, after completing court-mandated classes and meeting reunification requirements, Sophia Acosta was awarded custody of Alexa. The order recognized his ongoing role and provided a measure of stability for the surviving child. The community response to Sophia's passing had begun in the days after the hospital announced there was no chance of recovery, and it continued long after the sentencing. Vigils were held at Memorial Park in Livingston and at Triangle Park, where candles and handwritten signs marked the loss. Services were arranged through Ivers and Alcorn Funeral Home, and Sophia was laid to rest at Winton Cemetery. These gatherings drew neighbors, family friends, and residents who had never met the child but felt compelled to stand with her family. Public commentary remained divided over the role of Sophia's mother, Erica Smith. Jacqueline Perez, a former friend who followed the case, told reporters she believed Erica should bear responsibility for decisions that placed Cheery inside the home. Others focused on prevention, calling for stronger follow-through when caregivers or neighbors report concerns. Local advocates later installed a bench memorial, Sophia's Story, as a reminder of what was lost and as a quiet call to vigilance. The inscription and setting avoided sensational language and centered on remembrance. For many, the bench became a place to bring flowers, sit in silence, and reflect on how warning signs can be missed in ordinary settings. The sentence, the memorials, and the custody orders marked formal conclusions in court and community. Yet a harder question persisted, voiced at vigils and in private conversations. How can families, schools, neighbors, and agencies connect the dots faster when a child's safety relies on it? And while the jury rendered justice in the courtroom, questions linger. How many warnings must be missed before a child is truly protected? This case is, at its core, a breach of trust. Christopher Cheery was not an outsider. He lived in the home, cared for the children, and was treated as a parental figure. Multiple warnings surfaced before the emergency call, yet they didn't trigger effective protection. Caregivers raised concerns. Neighbors noticed turmoil. The safety net that should have closed around a 3-year-old did not tighten in time. The failures were layered. Reports and conversations did not translate into urgent action. Agencies were notified, but follow-through lagged. Each missed step, each delayed call, each unverified explanation added risk. The lesson is not that one person failed, it's that a chain failed, link by link. Families can take practical steps. Stay alert even with familiar adults in a child's life. Set clear rules about supervision, discipline, and access. Encourage children to speak up about anything that makes them uncomfortable and respond without delay. Keep notes when injuries or concerning behaviors appear. Dates, who was present, and how explanations change. If doubts persist, seek a second opinion from a pediatrician or counselor. When concerns rise above a threshold, escalate to authorities and follow up until you receive a definitive response. Schools, clinics, and childcare providers play a critical role. When professionals see a pattern, repeat injuries, shifting stories, or sudden behavioral changes, those observations must be documented and escalated. Mandated reporters save lives when they act quickly and insist on closure to their reports. As for the legal status, Cheery's conviction and sentence stand. The case is on automatic appeal before the California Supreme Court. As of April 28, 2025, defense filings and extensions continue in that appellate process. No ruling has changed the trial court's judgment. The broader impact remains visible. Child safety advocates in California point to this case when arguing for stronger oversight, better cross-reporting between agencies, and faster intervention when multiple warnings surface. Community memorials and educational efforts keep the focus where it belongs, on prevention and accountability. If Sophia's story moved you, share it to honor her memory and help protect other children. Subscribe and join this community of awareness and advocacy. Together, we make sure these stories are not forgotten, and that change happens